After the sawmill tour, it was off to Hadley Hill to visit the small Dayton cemetery. Shortly after the end of the reunion, a housing development encroached upon that little cemetery, and the remains of Henry and Christie Dayton were reinterred to the Dean Cemetery about 10 miles away.
And Ruth and I dug way down around it, trying to get to the bottom, real careful, you know. And we dug way down so that we could straighten up. We tanked stones around it. When we got that one straight, this one here was leaning a little bit. We thought, well, it won't be much of a job to straighten that up.
Don't bend it.
And we moved it just a little bit. There was room to cheek stuff in, but we kept going a little further. We wanted it straight. And we weren't pushing hard, but as we wiggled it back and forth, once it topped off at ground level. So we hadn't lost it. We didn't drop it, but it was still standing there. So Ruth went down to the car, and had an extension cord in there. We tied it to that tree. And then we had a white birch green there somewhere, and we cut it off in sections, throw it to one side, and I had her give me some of those, and we braced it here to the stone wall, and we had to leave it. We were kind of worried what we're going to do. Here we got all of you folks coming, and there's the stone in two pieces. So I slid over it that night, and then I gave up putting the metal brace behind it, because I didn't want something around here that don't stain all down. So this is what I decided we'd try to do. And about this time, John and Peter got in the picture, and I thought, well, I'll go down to the store and I get a couple bags of sand mix and see what we can do. So, 2 80-pound bags of sand mix and some 5-gallon pail part full of water. We come up, used the 2 bags. John went to Hadley, got 4 bags more. And we mixed that up, put it in here. By the way, it's quite a ways to carry it. And of course we got stones from all these walls. Did I ever tell you about I found an old size stuck in that wall 15 years ago. Ruth and I got permission after they were married to come up there and clean the cemetery out. We did that for 2 years. I guess we got tired. And well, anyway, get back to the story. John and Peter helped Ruth and I, and we broke that up. You see, we tried to make it a little smaller in back so you wouldn't see it all. We had 8 inches of play on between where it broke off and the lettering. And I thought we could get enough bearing there. So, oh, by the way, we liked another bag of sand mix. That made 7, I guess. They got get all full water.
Yeah. It ought to stay there.
Oh yes, I wanted to wash these stones off. We washed those off with muriatic acid. We needed more water to rinse those. What was that? Oh, that last bag, I guess we were thinking about the finish stuff. But anyway.
Hey Paul, where was
solid, but don't try to break it off.
Where was the house that they lived in?
Back down here, you saw that little house right up on the knoll, up just past where the new pickup, where all the garages were.
Okay, yeah.
The little house way up on the knoll is where the old homes
was it porch across there?
No, I don't think it's a porch. You're looking at the house by the road.
Okay.
The house
back up on
farther up on that knoll.
Okay, yeah.
But that house is burned 2 or 3 times. Now the place right across the road, Chip bought. I forgot if it was 35 acres and he sold half of it, or if it was 70 and he sold 35. Those people, Chip had a little camp there, and then people bought it and they made it better. And that was a swamp where the pond is, and Johnny Beeman and Corinth came up and made that pond. Sandersons when they bought the camp. They were from New Jersey, and now Long Street's on it. Well, back down before you got up to those houses, there was a little dirt road turned up to your left, and I was 16, and Chip was a little older. We bought a sawmill. We found the sawmill for $100, and we found a Buick for $10. And believe it or not, we could saw them. What I like to tell you about that is that old Buick. Please don't climb on the wall, boys. Don't want anybody getting hurt. Man, let us come in here. That engine, that manifold would run quite hot. We tried to cool it off. We put a 50-gallon barrel on it. We couldn't cool it off. One day we opened the blanks just a blister and it drained through the Buick. That's a Buick. I just wanted to tell you we had a sawmill there years ago, and there's a fellow got a portable house there. Now, they look pretty good, don't they?
Yes.
Can you read it all?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, I'm your history teacher, and I gotta give you a little history here. Right down at the bottom of the hill, when we first turned on this road to come up here, right there on the left was a house, and supposedly that was David Dayton's house. And David was one of the very first settlers of Hadley to come up here. He came from Columbia County, and he was born on Long Island. That's where all our Daytons are from, is Long Island. So he was the very first to come up here. He settled Hadley. In 1792 he came here. He only had, I'm not sure if he even had any kids at the time, but he was very young. And he had Henry, was born here. And when Henry married Christie, this is Camerons. Camerons were local. They came from Scotland. About 2 generations before her, they came from Scotland. They settled in Thurman, which is the next town over. And when these guys married, I don't know why, but they came to the top of Hadley Hill here. I imagine they were one of the first settlers. I mean, imagine it was all just, forest and stuff. And somehow they cleared off all this land. They had 250 acres of land here. And in the 1865 census, something like 150 of it or something was all cleared. And the rest was all forested or ponds or whatever. So they cleared most of this land. And of course, with this fence being here, probably all this direction was probably all cleared. It was probably, used for corn and all that. They had a lot of... In one of my old newsletters, it gives the whole history of that. But anyways, then this is, Wilber and Jesse Dayton, who was Dad's mom. Well, this would have been Wilber's grandfather. And then born to these guys were Charles Dayton, and Charles Dayton also lived here on the farm. He married Nancy Goodnow, and Charles, his son, and Nancy both died around the time they were 40 years old. And they left my grandpa, his dad, Wilber Dayton, as an orphan at the age of 13. And then if you've ever heard of Uncle Jim, he was Dad's uncle, and he was the one that brought the Dayton kids up when they were teenagers. And then if we can twist Uncle Chip's arm tonight, he can tell us a story about, he remembers the old homestead, the whole old homestead burnt in the early 1900s. But Uncle Chip remembers that as a kid, and he'll tell you a story about how he was afraid to go upstairs because he thought it was haunted and all this. It's really interesting to hear him tell about that, but the house burnt, so. And then Uncle Chip bought part of the property from Uncle Jim, and I think he still got the deeds and everything, so I suppose Henry's signature and everything else is probably still in the family someplace. I don't know if you guys have got any questions, but that's a real quick tour of, yeah.
Is there a house down on the right side going back where my dad grew up and was born? There's another cemetery back up the lane.
There is. There's a cemetery back way. That's a white. Of course, this is all Dayton stuff here. The whites, and that's probably why Wilber and Jesse got together, because they were neighbors. Jesse lived just down the road here, and there is a cemetery in there. We probably won't take
Blackwood.
Blackwood Cemetery. We probably won't take time to stop there, but a lot of the whites and stuff are buried in there. And over through that general direction, back down the road about a half a mile to a mile on the right-hand side is where all the White farm was. And, you know, Alexander White and Jesse's mother and father and all that, they were over through there.
Jim, I'm not sure this camera will be able to pick up what's on the tombstones. Could you read that for this?
Yeah. Well, of course, this is Henry Dayton, born April 18th, 1792. Died September 28, 1849. And down at the bottom it says, "Why stand you weeping round my tomb, whilst I with Jesus rest in peace? When God has called and took me home, prepare my friends to follow soon." This is Christie Ann, wife of Henry Dayton, born January 18th, 1796, died October 4th, 1865. Blessed are the dead which die in the Lord.
Thank you.
Good sermon.
Is that a child's tombstone?
No, they're
Foot markers. So these are the only two buried in here?
Another thing in history. I said down at the bottom of the hill was David Dayton. He was the first guy in Hadley Hill. He had there was a Dayton cemetery, and it was across the road near the river. They raised the level of the river with some damming and stuff in the early 1900s, and so they took out that whole cemetery that used to be a Dayton cemetery, and they moved it into Luzerene. There's a Luzerene cemetery now on Route 9N, and David's grave and his wife, Chloe Skiff, are up there. I mean, I don't know if you guys want to see them, but in other words, there are two gravestones in Luzerene that are the original settlers of Hadley. That's his mom and dad.
Can you, Jim?
What's the plan?
I'm sorry?
You know what the plan is?
Well, I mean, it's Cameron, but I don't. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Cameron. As a matter of fact, I've got a whole book on the Camerons. It starts right when they were in Scotland and comes right down through the. I mean, I've got a lot of branches, and I'd be glad to send that to you if you're interested.
One thing I ought to tell you. I hated to put all those stones right there, because at the resurrection, he might bump his head when he
Paul, that's fine. We'd just like you to make it consistent. If you pile a bunch over here.
They'll both have lumps on their head.
That was cool.
Uncle Paul, I wondered if it might be nice if we could have a prayer while we're doing it.
Where'd you like to put it? Okay. Be sure all the children understand. Come around just for a minute. Friends suggested that we have a prayer, and Nan Hubbard will pray.
Dear Father in heaven, what a blessed people we are. We just thank you so much for our wonderful heritage, for those who have gone on before, who've paved the way, have worked so hard, and have sacrificed so much that we could be here living now today. And dear Lord, we realize that we get generations are the ones that have to pick up the mantle, and we pick it up with delight and joy. We would ask you, Lord, that you would help us to carry that mantle faithfully, joyfully, and just hand it right on to the next generations that follow if you remain if we remain on the earth and the generations that follow remain. But dear Lord, I pray that you help us all to be faithful so that at the time of your return, that we will all be ready. And just as we have heard Jim read on these gravestones, that we will meet our loved ones and our ancestors one day when we go to heaven. We just thank you for this privilege. We thank you for the hard work that so many have done that we might share this day. We just thank you and praise you that we are part of a wonderful family and we are part of the family of God. And we bless your name.
Okay, next we're going to